Okay, now we're going to learn how to replace a button or sew on a button. So of course we need a button, which we've got here. We've got our thread, scissors, and then our needle, and then we've got the fabric that we're going to be sewing the button onto. Now obviously if you were replacing a button on a pair of pants or a shirt, you'd have that instead of this fabric, but we're going to practice on this. So the first step is to thread the needle, and we're going to do that with a sewing needle, and we're going to secure the thread ends with a knot like we did before. So I'm going to move this away a little bit. I've got my thread here. There's my eye of the needle, and I'm going to thread it just by putting my thread through the eye, pulling it through, and I'm going to follow that all the way until I get to the ends of the thread where I'm going to be tying a knot. So that's right about here. That's really long. I'm going to go ahead and trim that off a bit. I don't think I'll need that much. Okay, now we're gonna tie the ends, make that loop, put our ends through the loop, and pull. Now if my needle is a little bit thicker than my knot, that knot might go all the way through the fabric. So we're gonna check real quick. I'm gonna put this through. Yep, see that? Even though I had that knot in there, it went straight through the fabric because the knot is smaller than the needle. So we're going to double knot it and just do another knot right on top of the first one, and that should hold it in place and not come through the fabric. Just like that. Okay, our second step is to mark the spot where the button should be located. And to do this, we're going to start at the back of the fabric and bring the needle up to the front and through one of the buttonholes. So here's my button, and I'm just going to slip that right there on it. Okay, so one through the buttonhole, just like that. Okay, now if we had a toothpick, which if you were in college, you probably won't just have toothpicks laying around, but if you did, you could put it right underneath here, and you'd use that as a spacer between the two buttonholes. So I'd put that right here to hold the toothpick in place, and then I'd bring my needle through the bottom hole, go right through, like that, and then I'd do that a couple more times. So up through the top hole, and sometimes it takes a couple of stabs before I get it through the right one. There we go. Down on the other side of that toothpick. Well, it actually just slipped out. So using the toothpick's not necessary. It's a little more difficult, but it kind of helps give a little bit of space so that when you are tying or buttoning your shirt or whatever it is, it makes it a little bit easier because it's not so close to the fabric. So I've done that 3 times, and then I'm going to make a shank. So I'm going to come up through the back. Okay, so I'm coming up through the back, and I'm not going through the hole this time. I'm just coming between the fabric and that button. And the way I do a shank is I'm going to wrap that thread around a couple of times, and that makes it a little more secure. Okay, so wrapped it around a couple times right there, and that's going to keep that button secure. Now since I've got a 4-hole button, I'm going to go back down. Wherever my thread is, that's the same spot that I need to go back down. So I'm going back down to the back again of the fabric, right here. And then I'm going to do those other 2 buttonholes. This is my guessing game. See if I can get it through the right spot. So I'm getting closer. And the more often you do this, the easier it is to put it through the right spot. So there's 1 stitch. Do a second. And then we'll do a 3rd one. This is my last one. Up through the top buttonhole, if I can find it. See, I've already lost it. Almost there. Okay, and then right back down. Now you've probably seen where people would come up through one hole and they do a crisscross, which is totally fine too. It really doesn't make that big of a difference which way you do it, but you can do it that way also. Okay, so I've already put in my other 3 stitches and I'm going to make a shank again. Remember, so I'm coming up through my fabric, right between the fabric and the button. I'm not going through a buttonhole. And then I'm going to take that thread and I'm going to wrap it all the way around the thread that's already there. Okay, so the back of the button. That's my shank. Okay, and then once I've done that, I'm going to put my needle right back through that fabric to the back of the fabric, okay? Now once I've gotten this done, my button's on, I just need to make sure it's fastened, and the way I'm going to do that is by going to the back of the fabric, and I'm going to make a knot, because if I were to just cut this piece of thread off, then the rest of the thread could come undone easily. So I'm going to go through a stitch that I've already done on the back side, remember, and I'm creating a loop. Once I've got that loop, I'm going to go inside the loop with my needle and I'm going to pull it tight. That's one knot, and I'm going to do that a couple of times to make sure it's secure and that it won't come undone once I cut my thread off. Here's my loop. See that? Come through the loop, pull. And it does not have to be the same stitch every time. It can be different stitches because they're pretty much all in the same spot, as long as they're close to each other. Here's my last loop, through the loop, pull, and then I can cut that off. There, just like that. Okay, there's my button.